This report will simplify your financial statements drastically and let you spend less time preparing data and more time analyzing it. Hi, my name is Alex with Control Analytics. Today, I will show you how to build out a dynamic profit and loss statement in Power BI. This report can be intimidating to set up, but will make everything a breeze once it is. If you want to follow along, I've included an Excel template and finished the report in the link below. Just put in your email and I'll send it to you. All right, let's get started. Now, if you downloaded the Excel, go ahead and open it up. I'm going to explain what each category is and what we're using it for. So you'll see here we have a simple category, a level 1 item, level 2 item, level 1 sort, level 2 sort, highlight, and negative. Now, level 1 item is going to be the max level of hierarchy. Level 2 is going to be the detail. So in a finished product, it's going to look something like this. So level 1 is going to be this revenue, net sales, cost of goods sold, and something like operating expenses, versus level 2 is going to be the detail underneath. So if we go back to the Excel here, you can see for operating expenses, it's all the same here on the level 1 item, but for the level 2 item, it's all the details. Now we also need this simple category. This simple category is going to help us for some of our measures later on, and you'll see exactly what that's for. Then we have level 1 sort and level 2 sort. Level 1 sort is going to be only for things from the level 1 item. So if it's repetitive, you have to keep the same number sort. Level 2 sort is just 1 through the amount of items that you have. This is going to be dynamic in terms of, for you, you might need different items. So feel free to change this however you need. Then the highlight is going to be if you want the field highlighted. 0 for no, 1 for yes. For negative, it's just as straightforward. 1 is positive, -1 is negative. If it's a total, something like net sales, it's going to be blank. So if we look at our ledger table, we can see that I'm trying to recreate what you would typically see in a business's ledger. I have a ledger code, the amount, description, and the date, as well as the category ID and simple category. Now this is stuff that I use for later, so I'm going to show you exactly how to use that. The category ID links to my mapping table. My mapping table tells me which ledger ID goes to which category ID and the name of that category. This is, as a template, is completely usable, but feel free to change it for whatever your needs are. So if you have ledgers that need to match to certain categories, that's going to be up to you to map beforehand. And then new data, we don't need to worry about right now. That's all we need from the Excel right now. Now let's go ahead and import this to Power BI. We're going to get an Excel workbook. I'm going to load the template. For right now, all we need is the layout and the ledger. We're going to go ahead and hit load. And if we go to our model view, you're going to see it automatically connects. You're going to want to actually go ahead and right click and delete this relationship. For now, we don't actually want that relationship between it. It actually breaks the measures later on. Once you've deleted the relationship, go ahead to the right side, right click, and hit Edit Query. Go to New Source and write Blank Query. Go to Advanced Editor, select everything, and paste this code in here. Now, if you don't want to type this all out, which I don't recommend you do, you can download the Power BI report along with the Excel and just copy the code from there if you want to do it yourself. All I'm doing is taking a minimum of the date that's in the ledger, the maximum of the date that's in the ledger, and pulling everything between those years. Then I'm adding custom, a month name, a year, quarter, and month column. Go ahead and hit done, and you'll see there's everything. So if we look at dates here, we have everything from January 1st, 2022, all the way to December 31st, 2023, as well as the month names, the years, the quarters, and the month order itself, which we'll all use later. Go ahead and rename that to date table and close and apply. Now we want to tie the date from date table to the ledger. So let me move these things around. And you can see there's automatically a relationship. Okay. Now we have most of the stuff set up that we need. Let's go back to the report. First and foremost, I like to have a title. So I'm just going to say, this is my profit and loss report. Say 28, nice bold. And we move it up. Now let's go ahead and create a matrix. The whole point of this matrix is so that we can have something that's dynamic and will update whenever we add new items and we want to set an X amount of months to compare it to, or quarters, or even years. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's take a look and see what happens if we just take the layout. We take the level 1 item, put the level 2 item under the rows, and if we add the amount in the values. So if you make everything bigger, you will see, wait a second, everything's the same. And then if I drill down, yes, okay, things are going in the groups, but everything's the same. That's not very helpful. Even if I take something like from the date table and I go year, it breaks. Well, why is that? Well, that's because we haven't created the measures yet. So I'm going to go ahead and back out. Right now, we're just going to keep it right here. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter data, hit load, and we're going to rename it data prep. Okay. All right. So I'm going to create a new measure. I'm going to put a number here. So it's number 1, it's first, and I want it to be sales. And I'm going to calculate the sum of the amount from the ledger table, where the simple category from the ledger, not the layout, from the ledger is equal to sales. I'm going to close that. And I'm going to hit OK. And I have this first one. So now what happens if I drop this in? Oh, well, great. It's 6 million whatever for everything. Okay, if we get rid of amount. Yeah, okay, well, this isn't very helpful either. But let me show you on the Excel side what's happening. So here on the ledger, I brought in the category ID from the mapping and then used that to look up the simple category between the ID and the category. So we can see that 1 equals sales. We go to ledger, these ledger codes map to 1, and they're all part of sales. So this formula here, I want to copy and do for each one of these items in Excel, and always by the simple category. So we see here in the ledger, we have all the simple categories. I want to make sure that every item is accounted for here, and that it's all in the layout as well, that everything pulls in correctly. So I'm going to skip some time and do that now. And there we have it. I have now done it for every single item that is here in my layout. I have made sure that there's one for every. So we have 23, and you can see here, I've numbered it up to 23. I made 2 distinctions. So these are all the ones where it's traditional, just calculate, calculate, calculate. But I need to do some other math as well, like net sales. So I'll do sales minus return minus discounts and allowances. So don't be afraid to include the totals in there. Same thing with like total cost of goods sold or operating profit. I'll show you where that comes into play later. All right, here's where the DAX formula of all DAX formulas comes into effect. So we're going to go ahead, hit new measure. And I'm just going to paste this right now because I've already written ahead of time. But I'm just going to walk you through what everything is doing. So first of all, I'm just calling this actuals, and this is going to pull all the things together that we need. This has a positive negative value, which is just taking the max. Make sure you take the max, not the min, of the layout for negative. So you know how here we had whether or not it's negative or not. We just go ahead and check for everything that isn't a total. Like I said, I have the totals down here. I multiply everything times positive negative. If you want to do any specific type of formatting, I want to do currency formatting. You can change or set whatever formatting you want here. If you want to do millions, thousands, whatever, you can do that here as well. Basically, I have a few things. First of all, I'm checking if sales is not 0. This helps avoid the issue when you're multiplying times positive negative. If it's -1 and the value itself is 0, you're going to get some errors and your entire visual will break. So we put that at the front, just one check to say, are there any sales? If there are, go ahead and do the rest of the logic. If not, skip it. So then we're doing a second check. Is it in scope? Now, is in scope is a super helpful DAX formula. So if we get out of here and we look here, we see that we have some things twice. Gross profit, gross profit. Or in other cases, total cost of goods sold, total cost of goods sold. We don't necessarily need that twice. So we want to check that if something's in scope. So if we go back to the DAX formula here, we could say, okay, if the level 2 item is in scope, meaning that it is showing up in the level 1 item or whatever hierarchy we have in the matrix, then go ahead and do the switch statement. Now, a switch statement is nothing fancy. It's just a lot of ifs. We're just saying, okay, look at the simple category tied to the layout. If it's sales, show the sales numbers from our measure that we're pulling in here. Multiply it times positive, negative, and format it to this value. Then you hit comma and say, if it's sales return, do the same thing, so on and so forth. Now, the thing we don't want to multiply the positive and negative to is all of our totals, the net sales, total cost of goods sold, gross profit, all of that kind of stuff. So we're putting that outside of this is in scope because they're always going to be the totals and they're always going to be the level 1 item as well. And we're going to switch and say selected value, layout, level 1 item. And for net sales, and you see right here, we're not multiplying them times positive or negative here. And then at the very end, we're returning the result. So if this is a lot, I get it. You don't want to do a lot of typing. If this is confusing, please let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to explain it some more. Otherwise, if you just don't want to type it, feel free to download the Power BI and it has the code right in there just for you to use. We're going to go ahead and hit OK, and we're going to hide that. And now we're actually going to drag it into our visuals. So if we get out of sales, we go through and we say, hey, there's actually numbers in here. That looks pretty good. Everything is not in the order that I want it to be in. So cost of goods sold, I do not want it to be at the top. I don't want my net profit loss to be third line down. It's very confusing to read this. So let's sort that. So we're going to go down to our level 1 item. And we're going to sort by column, level 1 sort. So that's going back to the Excel. That's this level 1 sort. Now, if you see here, it goes less, and sales, which is not what we want. We actually want sales at the top. So if we go to level 2 item and we sort by column, level 2 sort. And everything falls into place. Perfect. This is all well and good, but I want stuff across multiple dates. So how do I do that? This is where our date table comes into view. If we go ahead and drag year to the column, we already have some totals here. That's super great, but what if I want to drill down even more? I want it at the quarter level. Okay, well, it's not showing up right now. So because it's a matrix and we have both multiple rows and multiple columns, we're going to pick here on the top, drill down on columns. We're going to hit this little fork here. And it's going to show us, okay, here we have some data from the fourth quarter of 2022 and the first 3 quarters of 2023. Now that's great, but what if I want even more? And that's why we did the month name. So you can go in the month itself, and then we can drill down one more time and say, hey, I want to see all the stuff. So you can see here, we have all our totals for each quarter, all the details. If I want to drag it down, we have everything. That's a lot of data, and especially a lot of totals. Now, this is great. We have a lot of information on here. However, it's a little much. I'm sure some of you can navigate this really fine, but for me, it's a bit overwhelming. So let's do a couple things to clean it up visually. So first thing I'm going to do is remove column subtotals. We do not need that. The next thing I want to do is go to Style Presets, Default, and None. I just personally like the way that looks. It's not for everyone. Totally get it. I don't really like this little plus or minus icon at the top, so I'm going to get rid of that. Right here under row headers, go to plus or minus icons, turn that off. And then lastly, I'd like a little bit of color because right now it's kind of hard to tell what's going on here. So I'm going to go to Cell Elements, Actuals, Background Color, and we are going to hit Rules, Values, and Totals, and we're going to go to that Layout tab where we have the highlight. Remember, if it's a 1, then we're going to highlight it. If not, we're not. So we're going to make sure it's a maximum and it equals 1. Make sure that's a number and hit OK. Bam, everything's highlighted. Super helpful, right? Now, I really don't want to see the year, quarter, or level 1 item. I don't think that's necessarily helpful for my report. So I'm going to go back to the front, and all you need to do is highlight that level 1 item in the visual itself, hit a space. Same thing for year, quarter, and just in case, we're going to do month name. And if you're worried that there's all these blanks, you can hover over it at any time and it'll tell you exactly what table and field it's coming from. Now, this information is great, but this is a lot of information. So how do I filter that? Great question. So we're going to create a slicer. Just hit a slicer right here. And we're just going to slap the date in there. Now, there's a lot of different options. You can have a range if you want to do something like this. And just say, oh, okay, give me everything, end of April through December. And obviously we don't have any data right now after September, but I want something a little bit more flexible and really easy for users to use. So I'm going to go here, go to slicer settings, and go to relative date. So I want to see the last 4 calendar months. So calendar months means it has to be a full month. If I just did months, you could see the data is different versus last 4 calendar months. Now I have my months in the wrong order, so that's not very helpful. So I'm going to go to my month name here and sort by column month, because month is just a number. And you can see that everything sorts automatically, July, August, September. If you have issues and sorting isn't working for you, go to your table view, go click on date table, and for the month, make sure that it is a whole number. Sometimes that fixes the sort. Same thing for the layout. If the level 1 sort or level 2 sort is not working, click on it, make sure it doesn't say data type text here and that it is whole number. That will fix the sort issue for you. Going back, let's move the date up here, nice and clean. Now I'm going to add 2 other fields to show a relative variance and a percentage change. So let's start with the variance. So go ahead, go to data totals, create a new measure, and then I'm going to copy and paste this. So this is going to be my prior period variance. We're going to take the current value, which is the actuals, and we're determining what the previous value is. That switch statement comes in handy, which we're going to say is always true. So we are checking the has one value. So we are doing in 3 orders of magnitude, by the month, by the quarter, and by the year, since that's what we're slicing it by. If you're doing other things like by days, you'll need to add that here. Remember, it goes in order of most granular to least. So that's why I'm doing month first, then quarter, then year. So I'm checking here. Does it have one value? Yes, okay, for the month. Then calculate the actuals. And date add, essentially, we're calculating it with the filter of a month before, a prior month before, whatever the current actuals are. Then we're doing that again, but for the quarter, and we're checking -1, we're adding -1 quarter, and same thing for the year. And this just says the same period last year. And if none of those work, then it's blank. So if you're getting blank, that means something's not working in the DAX and you're going to have to check it out. So once it goes through the switch, we've identified what our previous value is. Then we're going to say, okay, if the previous value is blank, just return blank. Otherwise, do the current value minus the previous value. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. And I'm actually going to put this in front of our actuals. And in October, you can see that I don't have any, so everything's just negative. But you can actually see the difference here, the variance here between August and September. But this is kind of hard to read, so we're going to make sure that for the prior period variance, we go up here for formatting. We want it to be a nice $sign, and we want 0 decimal places. All right, now that's helpful, but I also want to have percentages. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to actually copy this code. create a new measure. And I'm going to actually say, let's just take the prior period variance and divide it by the previous value. So prior period percent change. And go ahead and hit OK. Same thing here. Go ahead, drop that in. Now we need to format this as well. So let's do percentage. And 2 decimals is fine with me. Actually, I think I like 1 decimal. So we're going to do that. Okay, now time for some more formatting. Now, if you look, you can see, okay, our actuals is all highlighted, but everything else is not. So let's fix that. Go back to format your visual, go back to cell elements, and we're going to hit prior period variance, background color, and then we go to function, rules, values and totals, layout, and maximum. If you hit equals and it's showing percentage for some reason, I found that going to field value and then back to rules somehow fixes it, and then it says number instead. And that made it work for me. So if I hit highlight, again, maximum equals to 1, then we hit OK, highlights that. Let's do the same thing for prior period percent change, rules, values and totals. Let's go field value, then rules, layout, highlight, maximum equals to 1. And now you've got some nice highlights. Now I want to center everything because this is kind of hard to read. Let's go to column headers, center, same thing for title alignment. So you can see everything here. The columns are a little wide for me too. So I want to go to options and turn off auto size width and just manually do it. Just because I like it a little bit more clean. And then instead of actuals with an underscore, we're going to go back here and rename just to actuals. So we see the October numbers look a little weird, right? Because none of the actuals are actually loaded. And right now it's the middle of November when I'm making this video. So for the last 4 calendar months, it's going just to the end of October. So let's go back to Excel. And right here, I created some new data. And here are our October amounts. We're going to copy that, put it into the ledger. Let's go all the way down to the bottom. I'm just going to paste his values. And then we have these 2 other lookups here, which I'm going to drag down. You can see that all populates. And I'm just going to go ahead and save the template. Now, if I go back to Power BI and hit refresh, now all of a sudden, I have all the financial data for October. So while this can be a pain to set up, it's really dynamic afterwards. And once you have everything mapped, you can just add whatever the new month's information is, and then bam, you have up-to-date stuff. Now, the only thing I'd like to change is right here, this date is actually overlapping our year here. So let's go fix that real quick. Go to visual, and I'm going to just turn off the header because we can tell that it's the last 4 months. Bring this up, and there's the 2023. And there you go. You have your very first profit and loss report that works super easily, very dynamic, and super easy to update. So if you ever need to add something to these lists, you can. Make sure though that if you're updating this on the layout page that you're updating the sorts as well. You can also connect platforms like QuickBooks or anything else with APIs or databases and create the same sort of sorting, highlighting, and negatives. You just need to create this kind of table in whatever system you're using and pass it through to Power BI. Well, I hope this has been helpful. Please throw a like and subscribe my way if this video helped you, and please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hope you have a great day and keep crushing it with Power BI.